Hey, gun people. The wind's not blowing. My horses ran off on me. I was going to ride them. And they took off because they saw me getting the saddle stuff. So I can't go for a ride. It's a nice morning, so I figured I'd knock out a couple videos. My computer's upgrading to Windows 10. I don't know if that's going to be a good thing or bad thing. A couple people ask about, what do you do when you're contacted by a cop? You know, there's a lot of philosophies out there about how to deal with cops. You know, if you stick your hands up in the air, that's kind of a clue to a cop that you've probably had a gun pointed at you and you know to get your hands up and you don't want to get shot, and you're kind of been living probably the thug life. Because I don't raise my hands when a cop comes up, and most people don't. But people in the system and career criminals and ex-cons, a lot of times they will. Now, that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is you don't want to be digging underneath the seat and dropping your wallet and trying to get something and reaching and moving around a lot, because that makes the cop suspicious when he's approaching your car. Most people say turn on the dome light. I liked it when somebody turned on the dome light, especially if it was low light or limited conditions, because I could kind of tell they're not trying to hide anything. They're trying to turn the light on. That doesn't mean a criminal won't turn on the lights to fool a cop. I mean, some of the biggest drug busts I got were driving minivans and they had a little baby on board, because if you've got a baby on board sign, that means you're a loving mom or family guy and you would never be involved with drugs. So that was the big scam now. Or I support my local police. Oh, if a cop sees you put your local police, they won't pull you over. And, you know, we'd usually take pictures of that shit if there was a I support local police and we got, you know, a drug dealer. Once we identified him as owning a drug dealer, we'd say, hey man, just because the guy's got a sign that says I support the police, or I hate drugs, or get off drugs, or drinking and driving is bad, I'll turn you in, doesn't mean he's not drinking and driving, he's a drunk. So if you're in a car and a cop approaches, I think the best bet at night, turn on the thing. I like to roll down all the windows on both sides. That way if he approaches on what's called a passenger side approach by the passenger door, I don't have to worry about looking for the thing and rolling down the window and doing all that. I don't really have to watch him. If you're really watching him as he approaches and stare at him, that kind of makes the cop a little bit nervous. Turn down your radio so he doesn't have to talk over it and it's not distracting. And you can do most of this while you're pulling over. You don't need to wait till you pull over. Cop lights you up, you look for a safe spot to pull over. Acknowledge that he's there. You know, hit your brakes, don't slam on the brakes, but tap your brakes so he knows you're slowing down. Start looking for a safe place. Give a signal so he knows that you see him and that you're pulling over. And then when you find a decent place, I usually, if I can get off the road, I pull off the road. Now, I've seen cops have an attitude with people that pull off the road. When a cop stops you, you need to pull over immediately, mister. I mean, those are kind of asshole cops and whatever. I mean, there's no point in that. I don't really care if you take an extra couple seconds or 10 seconds or you're going to pull off the road to give me a safe spot. I really like it if you pull in the shade. I really like it if it's raining and there's someplace under cover and you pull under cover so I don't have to park in the rain. Then again, if you want to be an asshole, you want to stop in the sun, in the rain, as close to traffic as possible. And then the cop is worried about all this other shit instead of like, hey man, this guy's a pretty decent guy. He's kind of taking into consideration that he moved to the side. I like to pull more off the road so if he approaches on the driver's side, he's not out in traffic. Things like that, cops will realize that you're not trying, you're being aware and you're probably one of the good guys. The flip side to that, again, this yin and yang, I talk about this a lot, good and all bad, bad and all good. You know, it doesn't mean good guys won't do it, but totality of the circumstances. Remember, when a cop stops you, he's looking at what condition your car's in. Does it have duct tape all over it? Does it have 14 dents? Does it have I hate cops? Does it hate pigs suck? Are you scrambling around? Are you dressed like you're going to work? Is it 3 o'clock in the morning and you're not delivering papers? You know, things like that cops notice. Now somebody's going to get on here who hate cops. Hey, you cops are profiling just because I have a dirty car and I can't afford to get it fixed. You think I'm a crook. Totality of circumstances. Okay? There's good people with cars that look like hell. My car looks like shit. It's got dents all over it. It's a truck. It's an '05. It looks like shit. I don't wash it. But totality of the circumstances. Okay? I had somebody upset because I said it's a tattoo. If you have a tattoo and a shitty car and you're dressed with anti-police shit and your car looks like it's freaking about to fall apart and it couldn't pass a safety inspection, it's already a rolling stinking hazard, which means you're probably not going to waste money insuring a piece of shit, because if it gets towed, you don't care. That's why a lot of bad guys buy piece of shit cars for $500. Because they don't have a license, they don't have insurance, and they know their car's going to get towed. So they pay $500 and it's like, hey, I'm dealing drugs, I'm doing illegal shit, I'm committing crimes. My plan is if a cop pulls me over, I'm going to try to run and get away. So if I crash the car or I have to jump out of the car and leave it, I don't care. So it's kind of a so to speak, write-off. They don't care about their car. So those are clues to cops. Again, it's not one thing, it's a totality of things. Everybody wants to make it, because it's race, because he's black. There's a lot of black guys that drive Beamers and wear suits and go to work during the day, and they got clean haircuts and they look nice, and they're not going to get pulled over by the cops thinking they're a drug dealer out there doing crime. But if you get a guy with a do-rag around his neck and a do-rag here and his windows got duct tape and he's thumping his music and he looks like he ain't got a job and he's being a pain in the ass to the neighborhood, then he's probably going to get pulled over. Okay, if you attract attention, a DA told me once, if you run around with a target on you, people are going to shoot at you. And he told me that because I was always out there kind of, doing warrants, going against the system, not being so much of a team player. It's like, hey, I'm doing my job, I'm being honest, it's going to piss some people off. And he was like, hey, if you run around with a target on you and you get involved in a lot of things, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but you got to realize, if you wear a target, people are going to take shots at you. And that's the thing about cops out there picking on who do it. So if you're outside of a car and you're getting approached by a cop, again, totality of circumstances. If you're outside a bar and there's fighting going on and you're hanging around and you're hooting and hollering and you're throwing cigarette butts on the ground and you got an open container and you're throwing this, you're going to be more likely to get contacted than a guy that walks out of the bar and he's talking to a woman out there and they're off to the side and they're having a conversation. Now, if you're arguing and screaming and she's saying you're an asshole, then you're probably going to get contacted. So, unfortunately, when the media wants to promote, and believe me, I'm no fan of government, but the media, the liberal media, has this thing against cops right now, especially white cops, and it's just like they can paint the picture they want. So, you're not hearing the whole story on why the contact started and why things happen. So when you're outside, again, don't be reaching in your pocket. A lot of people want to reach for their ID right away. If a cop asks you for your ID, he's probably already sized you up, and that means he wants you to go get it. If he doesn't ask for it and you try to reach for it before he gets there to help him out, he's not going to be happy because he's going to see you reaching. He doesn't know if you're trying to help him by reaching for your ID, or whether you're going for a knife, or whether you're going to pull out dope and try to eat it, or whether you're going to pull out dope and throw it. He doesn't know those things, so it's a little bit iffy. So when a cop walks up, they're usually going to start off some sort of conversation, identify themselves. Hey, I'm Officer so-and-so, I'm Detective so-and-so. Hey, how you doing? I'm contacting you because, do you have any ID on you? And while we're asking that and we're telling you this, we're sizing you up. I'm looking for bulges in weapon. I'm looking for your stance. Are you standing like this at me? Or when I walk up, do you get this bladed fighting stance and are you ready to run? Are you putting your strong foot forward and getting distance to where you can punch me if I come in on you? Those are things that we're evaluating as we're walking up and talking to you. So your body language says as much as what you're doing. And, is there a right way? No, because cops are human. There's 1,000 different agencies and 1,000,000 different cops, and they all have good days and bad days. They all have different training, and they all do shit different ways depending on where they're from, what their experience is, what their training is, and what happened that day. So how can I give you a right answer on what to do? This comes down to totality and common sense. If you were a cop and you're approaching some guy, don't do things that's going to raise his suspicion. Don't do things without him asking. Move slowly and fluidly. Keep eye contact. Don't be glancing away. Don't be overly nervous. Don't get out of the car if he didn't ask you to get out of the car. When people get out of cars, that's a clue. I mean, I've stopped some people, a lot of older guys, they'll like to get out of the car and come back and talk. Hey, what's going on? You know, because they ain't got nothing to hide. And cops just don't like when you get out of the car because they don't know if you're going to run, if you're going to ditch dope, if you're going to throw something, if you're going to attack them, if you've got a warrant, if you got a gun behind your back and you're trying to increase your distance so you can pull it out and shoot them. We don't know that. So by having you in a car, it keeps us at the advantage. It keeps your back to us. We get to pick our approach. We can use the car as a blade. We can inspect the back seat, check the trunk, do these things while we're approaching, and it gives us the advantage. If you get out and face us, we lose that advantage. So that's why cops don't want you jumping out of cars. Same thing if you start digging around, correcting your kid. I've seen parents turn around and start trying to put on their kid's seatbelt, you know, and I'm like, dude, you're jumping around a car and you're reaching. I don't know if you're hiding dope. I don't know what you're doing. Well, I was trying to get my kid's seatbelt because he undid it, and I keep telling them, and you know, they come up with all these excuses so they don't get a ticket, and I'm like, you know, you're jumping around a car. That's probably not the smartest thing in the world to do. Well, that's rude, and you should. Look, I was just trying to get my seatbelt. Are you telling me I shouldn't put my seatbelt on my kid when he takes it off? Because some people just want to argue about the shit. So, good and bad, I don't know. I can't really answer that question. You know, people are asking me horse questions all the time, and I tell them the same thing. The answer to most legal questions in cop and government and horse and a lot of things in life, it depends. There's not a lot of black and white answers. This isn't science. It's not math. It's not there's one right way and this is the way that works and this is the only answer you're going to get if you do this. It just doesn't work that way. Totality of circumstances is a lot of information that's being exchanged, experiences, training, etc. from the cop. So, is there a right answer? No, it depends. So, a lot of times when I get these questions, people are like, man, he didn't really answer me. Well, I mean, if somebody wrote you a question, hey, teach me how to speak Spanish. I mean, how are you going to answer that? Well, you got to go to school, you got to get educated, you got to practice, you got to talk it. I can't just teach you how to speak Spanish, and then somebody wants to get pissed off. And I'm like, you know, it's the old elephant in the line story. Don't get pissed off just because you don't know the answer or you don't like the answer to the question. And the line story I've got on my website, I'll go ahead and say it. If you want to turn it off, you can turn it off. But Lion's walking through the jungle. He comes up to a snake. He pops his claws out and he goes, who's the king of the jungle? And the snake goes, you are, Mr. Lion, you are. And the lion walks off. And he walks up to a rabbit, pops out his claws, lets out a roar and goes, who's the king of the jungle? And the rabbit goes, you are, Mr. Lion, you are. So he walks up to an elephant, pops out his claws, lets out a roar, stands up, sticks his chest out and goes, who's the king of the jungle? Elephant looks at him, ignores him, and keep eating. He's like, hey, I said, who's the king of the jungle? Lion ignores him. He goes, hey, you better answer me. Who's the king of the jungle? The elephant reaches over, wraps his trunk around the lion, picks him up, slams him on the ground, throws him against a tree. The lion gets up, shakes it off, and says, hey, just because you don't know the answer to the question don't mean you got to get upset. So, hopefully that helped a little bit on what to do when a cop approaches you. Use common sense. Don't do things that you wouldn't want somebody to do. And remember, cops are paid to be suspicious when there's nothing to be suspicious about. So don't take it personal when they're suspicious. All right, we'll end that there.